discovering is easy. Fixing is hard. Fixing is really hard. It's hard in a way that I think most security people, I'm not knocking my security folks, but we don't understand. Been grateful to work around a lot of developers and understand really the complexity of a lot of that problem. But a lot of the solution needs to be distilling that down, answering those questions way quicker, right? Am I vulnerable to this? Yes or no? Do I have the information in front of me that I can make that decision as a developer? And so my hope is that evolves.
Welcome to the Forward Slash, where we lean into the future of IT. I'm your host, Aaron Chesney, with my beautiful co-host, James Carmen. Today we welcome into the fold Tyler Welton. Tyler Welton has been in information security for 15 plus years, serving in roles as engineer, pen tester, chief security officer, and architect. He has pioneered new attacks against application development systems, co-written the OWASP CI/CD standard, and has spoken at conferences such as DEF CON and B-Sides about his work. Tyler is the founder and CEO of Untamed Theory and principal security architect at Build Technologies. And he's going to be talking to us today about supply chain security. Welcome, Tyler.
Thank you so much. It's great to be with you.
That was a
Great
mouthful
to have
of
you.
an
You know,
intro.
speaking of security, I recently discovered I was a victim of identity theft. I was walking down the street and saw someone that looked just like me.
Wow.
Ooh. See, the oof is my highest regard for that joke.
That's right.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Well, that's the whole goal of the joke is for the groan, the guffaw, the or the eye roll. The best is the eye roll.
It's a high sign of respect. It's a very nice intro, though. Thank you.
Well, to get back on topic, one of the things that I thought was interesting after we talked, what was it, 2 days ago?
Mm-hmm.
I saw in the SC Times there was actually an article about open source security, and I thought that was kind of interesting that we're on point with this.
Yes.
And it's on the forefront of the press. So, what can you tell us about what a supply chain attack actually is?
Yeah, I mean, my focus has been a lot around specifically software supply chain, right? And the software development lifecycle and what it means to attack the software development lifecycle. And then watching as real threats have sort of evolved and adapted their techniques against that. Supply chain more generally is really, attacking any component of a supply chain, whether that's a physical supply chain or a software supply chain. In our case, right, we're talking about all the components and the entire process from code sitting on a developer's machine to being built, having third-party libraries compiled and to build in some sort of artifact that then goes and runs in a production environment, potentially, touching data, dealing with encryption keys, and all the things that a software does. So it's really the software supply chain is specifically what I'm talking about. And we can dive into any part of that. But the software development lifecycle is the target.
So basically anything in that development process that can get injected into your application on purpose, like as part of your build process and getting it out the door.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything that could get injected into the software. And then there's layers to it. So the software itself could be the target where I want to affect the software in some way. But then a lot of the work that I did around the CI/CD systems, and you mentioned the OWASP Top 10, which it's an open web application security project. They kind of drive the standards around web security, web app security. And a lot of the work I did around that was actually attacking the software supply chain itself. So using the tools in the supply chain that we use to build systems and targeting those and leveraging those against companies that are using them. Yeah.
So what are some of the, like, what would one of these attacks kind of look like?
Oh,
Like, how would you know that you're uh, being a victim of one of these types of attacks?
yeah, that's a great question. I think there are some standards, hopefully the worst case scenario is you figure it out as it's happening or after it's happening, right? That's you're a victim at that point. And that might be through signs of data exfiltration, large amounts of data leaving your environment, right? And but what's difficult, right, is that the tooling really it's exploiting flaws in the tooling that otherwise don't have security monitoring in place for them. I'll give you an example, and they're getting better at this. But one of the areas of focus that I really dove into and helped develop was what's called poison pipeline execution. That was a style I spent a lot of time on, and then that made it into the OWASP top 10 CI/CD list. But what that is using change requests as a means of entry, right, into software. So I would open malicious PRs. Now I was doing this as a white hat tester, right, for research purposes, but opening a malicious PR and then knowing that that pull request would hold downstream instructions for maybe like a GitHub action or a Jenkins server to run some stuff on, and then I would leverage that, right? And it's one of those things. Not a lot of Jenkins servers had monitoring solutions on them, right? How many are really watching the traffic on their Jenkins server other than maybe, making sure it doesn't get full or something like that. But as far as a critical piece of infrastructure, detecting that to your question, it's difficult unless you're already watching the traffic on that box or on that server if you're self-hosting it. You're not really looking for malicious requests. And what does a malicious request even look like? So I know that's not really an answer, but to what do we do to prevent? But in that specific instance, it comes down to kind of basic monitoring of your systems, and understanding what normal behavior is supposed to look like, right?
So if you're doing enterprise software at a company, most likely you would be internal to do these kinds of attacks. So this would be kind of like uh, something that's coming from the inside. But open source, that's not the case, right? Because you've got
Hmm.
pull requests coming in from anywhere.
Exactly. I mean, that's exactly it. And imagine that you are trying to be a steward of the development world, right? And you are wanting to contribute part of what your company is building back to the open source community. I mean, how many companies are doing that? Lots, right? Netflix, how many people use Netflix utilities in their so it's a common thing. But and of course you want to do that first line of checks to linting checks or making sure basic tests run correctly before a human gets involved to even review this open source pull request. But a lot of times those tools are run on internal infrastructure, and that's where it gets really problematic. And the systems that are GitHub, right? They've gotten a lot better in the last 2 to 3 years about some of their controls, but a lot of times those tests were being run on internal private servers. Sometimes the same server, like Jenkins servers or you know uh, GitHub Actions or some kind of runner, right? That had access to all sorts of stuff. And so if the attacker was able to compromise that, they now, through an open source project, had access to all sorts of internal infrastructure pieces, which is scary.
Not as scary as the one thing you had mentioned before when we talked about this. I associate it with like the long con
Yeah.
of taking over an open source project. Can you explain how that one
Yeah.
works a little bit?
Yeah. The XE utils hack comes to mind, right? Where this library, there was a core foundational library in most Linux distributions, uh, was target. What made this one unique and really pops out to me is not just the technical hack, right? I love technical hacks. I'm a hacker, so I can dive deep on a lot of the tech pieces of this. But I think what's so interesting about this is the long con is the best way to say it. Uh, it took almost 3 years to pull off, and it started with So it was pure social engineering. The foothold in the door was pure social engineering. It was uh, so the attacker set up a few things, and we don't know if it was one, probably a team. We would suspect, highly suspected it was a nation state actor, but opened a GitHub user, started making active, legitimate requests and contributions to this open source project over a series of 3 years. And as time went on, they were making and being very helpful, like legitimately contributing to this project as a means of gaining trust, right? And in addition to that, some smaller sub accounts were also contributing or at least participating in the conversations. And they got ultimately that accumulated in this attacker getting co-management of this open source project. They sort of convinced the owner, you've been doing this a long time, right? You probably, I know it's hard, they'd have some of these sub accounts complaining about the response time of the maintainer. And then through that, they were able to convince, hey, so and so over here, I think Gia T75 was the username. Like they've been contributing a lot and have a better response. And maybe it's time you maybe let them give them access to the repo and let them co-maintain with you, right? And that's what happened. And that took about 3 years to do. And from there, right, then they did all the technical side, all the technical work. They implemented a backdoor. They implemented a backdoor that was dormant 90% of the time, right? And it allowed a backdoor with very specific encryption keys to, long story short, it intercepted the way that OpenSSH worked, um, and fully compromised this very core Linux utility. Yeah, so that's to your point, much scarier, right?
Yeah. And
How do you detect that? How do you detect a
yeah.
3 year social engineering attack?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost a distrust of everybody. It's
Yes,
like, no, it's mine, 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 mine.
not to be
Um,
cynical, but yeah, I mean that's kind of what it is.
uh, and that's not the way we want to move forward. You want, especially in the open source community, you want the help from other people.
Yeah,
And this is the kind of bad apple that could spoil the bunch, right?
for
Because
sure,
you know
for
at
sure.
some point that gets back to a legal personnel and a company, and like, we can't use this anymore, and next
Oh
thing you
man,
know, adoptions go way down.
adoptions go way down, but also, there's a few elements here. I don't imagine a world that isn't running on open source somehow, right? Yeah, there's closed source software, but we're too far down the path to turn back, even if that was something we wanted to do, which I don't think it is.
Yeah, I make
Um,
the joke about going off the software grid and just I'm building everything myself. That's the only
every
way I can trust anything. I
Yeah.
build my own OS, build
Yeah.
my own
Good
my
luck with that.
own languages, my own compilers, do the
re-
whole thing.
reinvent every single wheel,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, so I've seen these things happen, and I think we kind of shared a little funny meme that was like, the bunch of building blocks, and there's just like, here's everything that all of this solution stands on, and then there's like this one little block of just some dude in Oklahoma maintaining some library or
Yeah.
whatever. Like this is the little piece that's going to mess you up. Now, do we see? Because I've contributed to the Apache Software Foundation. I've been a
Yeah.
member of the Apache Software Foundation for many years. Are we seeing any of that like kind of infiltrating any of the organizations yet, or is it more of these kind of individual maintainers? Is that where we're primarily seeing these sort of attacks?
It's a great question. I don't really have a good answer to that without kind of going one by one, right? A lot of those core utilities for the longest time were, but you see things like the Apache Foundation where they're sort of taking and it's not, it's centralizing control of those to some degree, or at least providing some sort of group management. Because I think the worst case scenario is that and you always, when you're doing like contingency planning for a company, right, you always have your hit by a bus scenario.
Yeah.
I think when you just take that alone into account, let alone a malicious actor or anything like that,
Hmm.
if you take that into account and say, wow, how many people are using basic compression on Linux. Like it's everywhere, right? To
Hmm.
have that functionality dependent on a guy or a gal somewhere, um, that's, that alone is a problem. So I think just more eyes, right? But I think when it comes to like NPM, uh, like moving away from like Linux and more into the code dependency world, you are seeing some maybe adoption is a better word, right? You're seeing groups come along and watch and rank, and that gets us a little bit closer to forcing, and might down rank it if there's only one contributor and the code hasn't been updated in 2 years, right?
Hmm.
That can affect the way that its security score or its trust level or whatever. And so you are starting to see some of that. I know NPM themselves are doing that and starting to integrate a lot of that into their platform. But yeah, I still think there's a ways to go there.
Kind of need like a Rotten Tomatoes for software rating,
Yeah,
like all
absolutely.
Rotten Apples or something like
That's a great
that.
that's a great idea. And there is some of that to some degree, right? Where
Right.
you kind of give it a generic ranking, how stale is it? But it's not, it's usually centralized to the platform, like NPM as an example, but they're not covering everything else. It'd be great to have something that um, gave you a picture of the open source projects, went through the top 1,000. You could always guarantee that you had an accurate picture of, you know, how long has it been since someone's even touched this code, right? Um, that
And
would
I
be
have
fantastic.
seen I have seen marketplaces on different pieces of software that use plugins and have kind of an open API type of thing, where they allow, external third-party development for plugins, have like rating systems in their marketplace for types of things, and like um, metrics on last update and things of that nature, so that when you are looking through like a long list of like plugins that you're going to pull into like your IDE or your CMS or something like that, that you can see these things and go, it
Yeah.
only got 2 stars and hasn't been touched for
Three
a year and a
downloads and
half.
yeah.
It's on a version 001. I don't think I want this in my system. So
Right. Right.
Yeah. The one thing that's hard, like I know at Apache, one of the project health like metrics is that, when's the last contribution, when was the last release.
Yeah.
That can be a little misleading, especially in open source, depending on what the library is. But sometimes you're just done. Like think about
Right.
like something like LPAD, your left pad of a string. There's only so many ways to skin a cat, so to speak, right?
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. From the secure
Downloads, yeah, that helps.
downloads, yeah, usage, is it being heavily used? Um, yeah, update. Yeah, I can see how that can be misleading. It's like, especially the simpler the code, if you
Hmm.
can
Yeah.
solve that problem elegantly, then you don't really need to go beyond it. But at the same time, right, one thing I would be concerned with as a security person is what dependencies is that dependency using, right? What second order dependencies are there? And are they
Hmm.
stale? And do they introduce vulnerabilities where maybe they weren't vulnerable the first time that code was developed, hasn't been touched in 2 years, but some 0 days have been discovered in those dependencies that it's built out of, and do those need to be, reevaluated?
And
And
what?
those are horrible to find in a dependency tree if
Oh yeah.
something picks up on a vulnerability, like your checkmarks report or whatever
Yeah.
says, oh, you've got, this thing. And I'm like, I'm not bringing that in as a dependency. So that means one of my dependencies is bringing that in as a dependency, or one of its dependencies is bringing it as a
Hmm.
dependency. So you have to start walking that tree all the way down to try and find which one is using the bad one, and then work it back up to find a version that does. And it's a
Yeah.
logistical nightmare, and you could spend days just trying to find, okay, where actually is this vulnerability, because this is not a library that I'm using directly.
Yeah. So uh, we've developed the Untamed security platform over the last year, and SCA, or dependency vulnerability scanning, is part of that. And one of the things we're doing right now is working towards a solution. Like right now, I can find all those vulnerable dependencies in your tree, right? But reachability analysis is another big part of that. Not only are you using that third order dependency, maybe you are, maybe you aren't. Maybe when it all gets said and done, that exists or doesn't. But if it does exist, are you using the vulnerable function? Because usually there's like some component of it. Oh, this function in this library of this version. Okay, does that get called? Is there any permutation of your application's use of that library that might result in that function being called? And if the answer is no, then it's a non-issue, and you've sunk a lot of time into investigating if that was an issue or not, you know. And so it's absolutely in order to really gain adoption from developers, I think with a lot of the security tooling, it's really important that we make that process a lot easier and a lot cleaner and hopefully automated, right?
Yeah, and that's the key. I mean, from the development side, the more information you have on something that gets flagged, the better, because then I can go right to it and go, yeah, it's a not thing. But I love that usability metric, because that's what's missing out of some of these things. Like, well, yeah, if you're using it this way, that I could see that being a vulnerability, but we're not doing that. We're using it
Yeah,
for this part over here, especially in large libraries. I mean, if you're pulling in a large library, you're only probably using 10 to 20% of that library for what you need it for. And then
exactly.
the rest is extra utilities for edge cases and things like that, and that you may not be using in your application.
Mm-hmm. Like
So it's kind of
Absolutely.
Spring
pointless to
Boot.
go chasing after the red herring.
Yeah. Spring Boot, for instance, I mean, it's just brings in the kitchen sink for a lot of that stuff, or even makes them, optional. But sometimes that can still show up. Now, and some of this, like tracking these things down, like nowadays, Tyler, it's like it's not even really optional anymore. I think there's in there like legislation and regulatory requirements now around like making sure you know what the heck is baked into
Yeah,
your stuff.
absolutely. And it's really interesting. So, yeah, it's being regulated. Now, there's the framework regulation, and now there's even executive orders that are out that are now it's very specific as to who. So, in this case, they're very concerned about government, right? Any
Sure.
governments, but it doesn't just mean the government developing the code. It means if you're going to be a vendor of a government entity or do some government project, right, you're going to need to be able to attest to a few things. One is just they kind of generically define secure code. So making sure you're scanning and securing your code, that's one requirement. But the other is SBOM specifically, so the software bill of materials. And it's just a list of libraries basically and components. It can include like frameworks like Docker or something like that as well. But just the stuff, a list of stuff is a good way of saying it. It's a list of stuff that your software is made of, but you need to be able to attest to the and provide it in a specific format. Um, and so we're doing that on our platform. You can export that if you've ingested the repositories, but um, they're going to require that you be able to provide that as a service provider, and that's
Mm.
new.
Yeah.
It's been in talk for a while. The MIG executive order came out in 2021. It's 14028 is the executive order. Where it's a big software specific one, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Yep.
they're really doing it for not only government but AI now. They're going
Mm.
to want you to show if you're building an AI system, what's in your AI system.
Mm.
And that I know that's a very generic thing to say because, right?
Everything's AI these days.
Yeah, it's all
If you got
AI.
an
I
if
mean,
statement, it's AI. Yeah,
isn't it just a series of if statements? I
that's
mean,
right. It's just a
correct me
bunch
if
of
I'm wrong.
And everything boils down to the bit switches, right?
yeah. It's
Yeah,
automated if statement writing, I guess, or whatever.
yeah.
Well, the S bomb. What I wanted to ask Aaron real quick, like it's kind of easy to do. I'm a Java guy, right? So I think of like using Maven, and you can kind of get. We've been able to do the dependency tree as kind of Aaron was alluding to, but in the modern world, everything's containerized. So I would imagine and I don't know a lot about the SBOM world. I know this is an area that you're actively working in. Does the SBOM have to include like everything down into the container, like the version of XZ that's in the image that you're based your stuff on, and every layer that's in there? Like, do you have to have all of those things, everything baked into the SBOM?
Um, per legislation, it's not super clear on exactly what components, but typically you'll find two types of SBOMs that get generated. One will get generated from a container, or it can be generated from a server image. And so you can point those at containers specifically. The most common kind is to look at a repository and generate an SBOM from the repository.
Mm-hmm.
And that will include mainly third-party libraries. But yes, you can do it at a container level and probably should, right? Because, for example, that utils hack, that was a I won't call it OS, it was a container level or OS level dependency. And so it wouldn't have been caught, right, in a standard SBOM with a manifest that's just like a pip file and a Docker file or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
unless it was spelled out in the Docker file. But a lot of these are in the base images, right? And
Yeah.
so,
I seem to remember back, this was a while ago, when legal kind of was snooping around our software, that they wanted like a
Snooping.
list of everything we were installing on the servers, as
mm,
well as
mhm.
what we were, and we had to go manually do license checks on all the third party stuff that we were
That's another
pulling
thing.
in and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, to make sure that we were compliant with the licensing. So there was like certain licenses we couldn't use. I don't remember which one. I remember the MIT one was okay. I think the Apache one was okay, but there was another one out there that were
Yeah.
like, oh, we can't
GPL.
use that.
Yeah, the GPL stuff forces you to, if you're using open source, you have to open source your stuff and provide the source to other people. Some of
Yeah,
those can get
that's
really
what it was.
gnarly.
It was the GPL
The
ones.
copy left
Yeah.
stuff.
The copy left, and that can be massively problematic.
Oh
And
yeah.
I'm going to talk. I'll say this anecdote, and I'll probably have some of the details wrong because it's sort of secondhand. But um, Cisco had a problem with that, where they had copyleft software running as in their firmware in some of their switches or some of their hardware. I'll say hardware. I don't know if it was switches or not. And they had to physically recall millions of dollars of switches because
Man.
an owner of one of those copyleft licenses claimed ownership, found out they were downstream in this software, and decided to take their share. Right?
Wasn't there an era of, I forget the group of folks that was doing it, but there was one that was like they were buying things that had these patents, and then they would just use almost like patent warfare, so to speak, right? You're
Oh
going
yeah.
after, yeah, very much like you're saying. Oh no, we
Interest.
own
Yeah.
yeah. If that's in your software, I'm coming after you, and I'm just, it's almost like extortion kind
Yeah.
of
It is. I
It
mean,
was
it's
it was general patent, wasn't it?
general, yeah,
Yeah.
oh, I got another groan. That was good. Yeah.
terrible. Yeah, it was like this like technology extortion thing going on, that they were, a real nice software package you got there. Make sure it would be a shame for something to happen to it, that kind of
It'd
thing.
be a shame if you were using this for a linting library, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Shame if you
Yeah.
didn't have a license for that. Huh?
Or if you had to open source all your stuff.
That's right. You give away all your crown jewels. I bet you'd hate to do that. Yeah.
No, man, that's exactly. I mean, it's ambulance chasing for software licensing, right?
Yep.
Good analogy. I love it.
It,
Yeah.
it it did feel that way. It's like, oh my gosh. As you can tell, I love our legal departments.
Yeah.
Well, it's one of those things like you don't. You want it when you need it,
Yep.
You don't appreciate
and
them until you need them.
yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And I find them coming up most often, right? That kind of check, having that check baked into your software development. Man, it's a especially around acquisitions, right? That's my experience. I'm sure it happens other times, but it always seems in mergers and acquisitions or adoption of new tech, right? That's when it comes up is what's in here or what are we buying, and you don't want any surprises. So it is important.
Yeah, especially if you're involved with the DOJ, they take a hard look at what you're doing and will say you've got to make this has to, you're getting too much competitive advantage in this one area, so you got to, make something available there.
Yeah,
And I've seen it kill a major merger because there was like, we have we the way we have it ingrained in our systems, we cannot figure out how to make this available for public consumption that won't give away our trade secrets.
yeah, Absolutely. And that's a thing to keep in mind, right?
Yep.
Especially if you're super dependent on your intellectual property as a business, right?
Hmm.
Some IP exists, some doesn't. Not all software developed is intellectual property per se, but um, yeah, it's super crucial.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like you think about, and I'm somewhat new to this world myself, but like when if you're looking to sell a company or whatever, all of the different things as Aaron's saying that they investigate, like all the aspects that they think about whether or not you would be a desirable acquisition or not. With everyone kind of waking up and realizing, oh, I'm a tech company, that and my dog is emphasizing this for me. And everybody's saying, I'm a tech company now. That's got to be a big part of this picture going forward in the future. Is like, can you the provenance, so to speak, of your code and your intellectual property? Did you actually come by this legally, and is
Yeah.
everything legit now? That's a fascinating topic.
Well, we could even dive into the provenance discussion,
Okay.
right? Which is there's we can go down here as far as we want to, but the idea of provenance of your supply chain is a thing, and there are standards now, but that you can use to sign every commit,
Mm-hmm.
and that culminates almost blockchain style, right, up into these signatures that sign signatures that um, sign your containers, and ideally, right, with full provenance, you can tell the story, complete story. If you have an artifact running, let's say it's a zip file that you send off to run in a Lambda, uh, you can tell the full story of how that was built down to the third parties. You can unravel it all essentially and have it validated so that you know that the artifact that's running is in fact what you think it is. And if it was interrupted at any point in that process to inject something malicious or something was taken over, it'll break that provenance cryptographically and um, attest to the thing that's running. So that's a hard problem. I don't know anyone who can say they have it fully implemented, right? But Salsa is the framework I'm thinking of that came from Google, SLSA, and they're attempting now and have been for a couple of years to provide a framework that you can start making those attestations. But it's a hard thing to do.
It's basically a digital paper trail of your artifacts, right?
Yeah, exactly. The massive
And
spider web.
allow
Yeah.
you to follow the money back to.
Well, yeah, I mean, and you'd have to like be able to prove that this thing, I don't have a better phrase for it, like almost like it's like forensically complete. The entire
Mhm.
story is
Yeah.
there, every bit. There's no pieces missing, nothing's, no gaps in this story whatsoever. The whole, everything is complete. That probably is a really hard problem to solve.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
I
that's probably
mean,
a lot of fun.
even just getting code commit signatures from an entire development team, that's hard, right?
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
like just because you got to do all the signing and all that. Is hopefully it's not super hard, but it's hard enough to just ensure that that's always running, right? Um, let alone every other component of that. Having your build system, every time it builds something, sign it. Every package it downloads, sign that package. Validate how far down the dependency tree do you validate. It's a big problem.
Well, and
Yeah, I
like
can
the
imagine.
GPG with us being so distributed, like all those keys that you use to sign, they have to kind of be attested to by others, and you have to do that virtually. And how do you do that securely? Like, do I hold my license up in the camera? Sometimes they have those
Right.
co-signing parties where if you're at conferences or
Yes.
wherever they're together, they'll sign each other's keys,
Yeah.
and make sure that they're
Signing parties. Yeah.
yeah securing each other's keys, and it's all fascinating for sure.
And you can't ever fully do it. Like if you could just keep following that forever. So
Oh yeah,
at what point do you go good enough,
right,
right?
yeah.
And that's going to differ based on what you're protecting.
I think
Yeah,
once you put your passport numbers into the system, I think that's probably about as fine grained as you could get, right? We validated that this is the actual person that wrote this code.
yeah, I'll validate your key, Mr. McLovin.
This seems legit.
That's got to be right. Got to be right.
Okay, Mr. Mickey Mouse. Here's your commit.
Yeah, you're now free to go commit anything you want. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So one of the things that we discussed earlier too that is another one of these kind of like attack things that we need to be concerned about? Is it this idea of a confusion attack?
Oh, sure. Yeah, dependency confusion. There's we can certainly dive into that. Confusion attacks aren't really. It's kind of like the same tactic applied to, with a different medium, if that makes sense. There's a number of different ways to do it. One of the most common ways it was happening earlier on in third-party library dependencies was it wasn't so much the dependency itself. It was an issue of trust. And imagine a scenario where you have private and public dependencies. Maybe you're leveraging a bunch of public third parties, and you also have some cache, right? Like a Nexus cache or something like that. Or maybe you're using the GitHub artifact, the GitHub cache, or whatever it is. And the attack would play on the confusion between the two. And what you had was really the systems preferring and defaulting to public facing repositories. So imagine a scenario where your team had an internal package called ABC package. But the system that when you said npm install ABC package, by default, it went out to check if there was a public repository first. The caching systems were vulnerable to this because they would default by going out and grabbing the public package with that name first. But let's say you never had a public package with that name. Well, that allowed an attacker to set up one, right, in a public. If that public open source name wasn't taken yet, they could, like an npm package, they could go and take that name, and then systems would default to using that and not cache the private one. It wouldn't reach out to the private one first. And through this, like, there were some big, if you were able as an attacker to find out the name of some internal package, which there's a million ways to do that through error handling and all sorts of ways,
Sure.
social engineering, right? Any number of ways to find out the name of, or even brute force, you could just go sign up and create a bunch of malicious, and the more sophisticated ones, right, would function somewhat like the one they were supposed to be emulating. And through that was a dependency confusion attack.
Wow.
You're also seeing just even simpler stuff, like about domain squatting,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where you get a slight typo in the name of a DNS record. Well, the same thing's happening in GitHub, right? Where you're just taking a package name. I'll take the Go language as an example, where you can put a exact GitHub repository URL as your dependency in your manifest, and they would just typo squat and will typo squat on GitHub, and just off by one name squat for a repository. Now you have to mess with the org name there, but that's not too hard to do.
Right. Oh, wow.
Yeah. So those are some examples for sure. That's still a continuing threat. What we did see from the initial, uh, you know, slew of attackers using this is that the vendor started buttoning up, because a lot of those were vulnerabilities in the Nexus repository or the
Mm-hmm.
GitHub actions not understanding. So once the vendor got their stuff in order, some of those vuln classifications kind of went away, but they're not gone. They're not gone at all.
So this is all pretty scary kind of stuff if you're a developer and you're like, dang,
Right,
how can I
right.
trust anything out there? What are some of the things that we can do as like countermeasures that try and make sure
Yeah.
that we're not getting victimized by these different attacks?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. So this typo, like dependency confusion attack, really, it's funny how so much we want to do that is technical, and I think there's an element of technical, what I'll call a code foundation, that you can have in place. There's scanners that are checking for dependency vulnerabilities. Scanners are looking for code vulnerabilities, vulnerabilities in the infrastructure you're deploying. Those are all paramount. But in addition to that, it goes back to just, there's something to be said for someone reviewing your code,
Mm-hmm.
right? Peer review of your code is the human element being introduced in like a typo squatting scenario. That's where those will get caught, right? Oh, you misspelled this.
Yep.
Thanks, man. you know,
You missed a period here. Yeah.
yes, exactly. And as kind of hard as that is to fully rely on, in a lot of cases, that's going to catch some of this stuff.
Yep.
Um, so peer review and process. Just what's your process for validating third parties when your company or team introduces a new library? What's your three check boxes that you want to look for first in validating that that's a library you want to use? Um, it's easy to go after new shiny, right? It's easy
Yep.
to npm install something that looks good, but I think
Well, we
having a
used to call
process
it the
there.
bleeding edge, right? So, and
Yeah.
there's a reason for it,
Yeah.
Doesn't bleed for no reason. Yeah.
right? So, what do you see is kind of the future of supply chain security?
Yeah, I see a few things. I see platforms starting to take more accountability for uh, being a manager of the process. So what I mean by that is like a GitHub or a GitLab, not just source code management even, but even package managers, right? Docker Hub, starting to bake a lot of that in, not just the checks, but starting to take some accountability to the fact that they are hosting things that could potentially be malicious. I think it's in their interest to do that, both like financially, it's in their interest to do that, reputation wise. And if they want to be a player and a steward in the open source space, they certainly are going to need to continue to improve there. So I see that. I see a lot of that happening. And with the dependency confusion, as an example, we saw the vendors changing their tune, and that kind of helped things. Um, so I see that evolving in that way. I also see things happening much, much faster, right? Meaning the checks and the fixes. We're just seeing code develop at a much more rapid pace. And I think some of the processes are shifting to adapt to that fast pace of development. And with that, at least my hope is, in Untamed, we're really trying to get ahead of this curve and develop scan types that are going to detect things a lot sooner in the pipeline. Uh, I think we're going to see things get detected and fixed a lot faster. At least that's maybe my glass half full look at things.
I hope you're right,
Yeah,
because some of these
Absolutely.
security things can take forever to not only discover, but to find where it's at.
yeah. I think
It's
we're leaning into the discovering. We can do that easy, right? Discovering is easy. Fixing is hard.
Hmm.
Yep.
Fixing is really hard. It's hard in a way that I think most security people, I'm not knocking my security folks, but we don't understand. And so really I've been grateful to work around a lot of developers and understand really the complexity of a lot of that problem. But a lot of the solution needs to be distilling that down, answering those questions way quicker, right? Am I vulnerable to this? Yes or no? Do I have the information in front of me that I can make that decision as a developer? I think that's a huge piece of it. And so my hope is that evolves. That's the part that needs to be evolving. Scanning and detecting is fantastic. It's step one, right? But it's not the full picture.
Yeah. Like one of the modern software practices and is staying current with dependencies. Like
Hmm.
you could say, oh, our feature's done, okay, but you're not done. You still have to keep like, okay, that new bug fix brand or patch version came out, you need to upgrade to that, because the closer you stay to the front, the more likely it is you're going to be able to quickly bring in the patches that fix security vulnerabilities. If you're 20 versions behind, chances are you're going to have to go rip through your code and
That's
change
exactly it.
signatures on stuff. Like you got to try to stay current, and that makes it really hard, especially like you said, this stuff, it's only accelerating, it's getting faster and faster. So just staying fresh with your dependencies is the way to go. You got to stay really close to the bleeding edge, so to speak, as Aaron would put it,
Yeah.
or you'll get left behind.
Yeah. That's exactly it. I mean, it's patch management at its core, which really is not even a security function, right? I mean, it kind of is. It has security implications, but patch management of your libraries and patch management of your base OSs. How often are you updating your base images? And I think, I'd be curious to hear your all's perspective on this from the dev side, but uh, it seems like automating that is difficult because automating it requires really proper testing that you need to be able to move. If you're going to move that fast, you need to be able to trust the thing that comes out of that automation. In order to do that, you need testing that you trust, and it
Mm-hmm.
that's a hard problem too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Absolutely.
and so, yeah, there's a
So
lot of opportunity there.
some of the things that I've gleaned from today, one, have somebody look at your dependency structures as part of a peer review,
Yeah,
to make sure that you're not using old, outdated things or made a mistake in your entries, possibly looking for settings that are taking public over private repositories where
yeah,
appropriate. Um, some of the other, one of the other suggestions that I liked was stay current with the libraries that you're using so that you're getting all of those security patches from your downstream.
yes.
Or, sorry, that would be your, what is that, upstream? Downstream.
I,
Upstream.
I always
I,
get confused.
like,
Upstream.
yeah,
Your
I
up,
guess upstream.
yeah,
Yeah.
from your upstream.
Mm-hmm.
But
Um,
you're sending it all downstream, right?
yeah, yeah, you're
So
sending stuff downstream. So yeah, it'd be all upstream. So from your upstream dependencies, you're getting all of their security patches and stuff into your application to make it a little bit more sound, and leverage your platforms for scanning and detection of any kinds
absolutely,
of known vulnerabilities.
100%. Those that covers the basics, right?
Yep.
Um,
Oh, and the other one I thought was interesting too is also check for security gaps in your platform as well, not just in your pipelines.
yeah, yes. Make sure that the things you're using, not just the code you're writing. We talked all about. Uh, we think about SIP, SAP, and SOP, right? There's security in the pipeline. That's what security uh, around the pipeline and security on the pipeline. And really, we've been talking about security in the pipeline. So, what is the end goal, and what are we developing, and what does that thing look like? Uh, if we're manufacturing a car, what we've been talking about are all the parts and the end product and testing it. But we haven't talked really much. We actually did it with the dependency stuff around the factory that's building the car and all the equipment that the factory. What is the fact? Can I hack the factory equipment? Right. And yeah, there's a lot of room there.
You need the OSHA for software. Yeah.
Oh man, I don't know if I like that analogy, but yeah, it's a good analogy. It's just yeah, I don't
You
want to
don't
be
want to
seen as
be
OSHA.
associated
Yeah.
with it that
Does everyone have their hard
way.
hats?
Yeah.
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 $10,000 for
Yeah.
every unlabeled spray bottle on your shelf. Yeah.
Yeah. Where's your lockout tags? Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so this has been great. I want to thank you for that. So we're going to move on to our next section,
Yeah.
which is ship it or skip it.
Okay.
Ship or skip, ship or skip. Everybody, we gotta tell us if you ship or skip.
And what we're going to do with ship it or skip it is we're going to throw out a topic that you're either going to say, yeah, this is great, ship it, use it, um, or skip it. Maybe not so much that we want to be doing this kind of stuff. And then there's the gray areas in between, because there's nothing everything isn't always cut and dry. So, James, you want to give us our first ship it or skip it
All
topic?
right.
Yeah. I mean, I looked for topics today, and I was kind of like, let's get some like really controversial stuff. So I thought, okay, the first one was like maybe is the notion of shift left, is that movement, is it overhyped? Is shift left a thing? Like, no, do it, ship it, or is it
Yeah.
overhyped?
You know, that's an awesome question because you still hear it all the time. I think shift left is a marketing thing, right? It is a marketing phase, but I think the intent, like if I could summarize shift left, uh, I don't say skip it. I'll say ship it, but I with some clarification. So, um, well, maybe that wasn't even the ship it skip it thing, but uh, shift left's intent was do security sooner.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm all for doing security sooner. What was hard about that is when you say left, what does that mean? And every development team works completely differently. And what was happening is these products were being developed or these processes were being developed um, to fit what security teams had concluded that development teams work like. We know how developers work, and we've built a product to solve for that. It's called shift left, and we're shifting left. And it was, um, uh, and it didn't always work because every team works differently, right? So the tooling didn't really adapt to their intent, which was to move security earlier in the process, um, which I am all for. So I'll say skip left if we're looking for a simple yes or no on that. But knowing that I'd say maybe 10 to 30% of developers adopted the tooling in their IDE while they were developing code. The rest relied on it a little bit further right in their source code repositories when they were doing tests against PRs and things like that. So to me, that's where it makes the most sense to live, is in the repository. Maybe not all the way in the IDE unless you have a really security-minded development team that is going to implement the tools on a on faith basis.
Yeah, and I'm gonna give a ship it and a skip it version of this. Um,
That's kind of what I did. So
yeah, if the definition of shift left is the developer's responsible for everything, I'm gonna skip it, right? I
yes,
we can't overload our developers that much. We already have enough to think about in world hunger to solve. So, adding more tasks to our list is just not in a place I want to be. Um, that on the ship it part, if it's move a process as far left at that as it makes sense to move it, then I'm a ship it. So as long as it's not like move it all the way left to the developer and let them worry about it, then no, that's a skip it. But if it's where it makes the most sense, shift it as far left as it makes sense, then yeah. And for me, that is shift it left until you can automate it.
Mm.
that's great. That's
Yeah.
actually a great observation. There is some low-hanging fruit that can be
Hmm.
done all the way left that puts very little work on the developer.
Yeah.
Some, but not all.
Yeah, I mean, Aaron and I are both, developers at heart. So I kind of I agree with him on the, we just can't. Number one, like the world of security, as you were saying, it's changing all the time. Just like the world of
All the
software
time.
development is changing all the time. It's really hard to stay like completely current with everything that's going on and have to know
Yes.
that and know software development. Oh, and by the way, how to run everything in the cloud. Oh, and blah, blah, all of the things,
Yeah.
right? So it's really hard to do. That doesn't mean that we can't be more conscious of it. And I think we have great tools like where you have like that kind of like those linter tools or those static code analysis tools like SonarQube built into your IDE, where as I'm coding, it will say, hey, this seems kind of funny. You're accepting input from a user and just putting that into a SQL string. That's probably a little shady,
Yes.
like that. But that's kind of education along the way. That's one thing I love about those tools is that you're like, what, why is that bad? I'm just concatenating strings. And because
Yep.
Bobby tables could exist, right? So I think that I agree, like putting the tooling in, educating. I'm all for educating developers to get smarter about security. Absolutely, they need to be more and more conscious of it as much as they can. But ultimately, you got to do it in multiple steps along the way. You
Yeah.
have to put the rock solid scanning, and I think that's kind of what Aaron is saying is like do it after the fact as well. Just multiple
Yeah.
levels of check.
Defense in depth.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, what's our another ship it or skip it there, Aaron?
Speaking of security, I I thought this was an interesting one. This was actually brought up by our producer the other day. Is two-factor authentication.
Yeah.
Ship it or skip it.
Hmm.
Oh, my default is going to be ship it. Only because I 100% know the implication of not having it. and the attacks I've been able to pull off as a result of them not having a second factor in place.
Mm-hmm.
I also think some of the second factors, right? Something you have, something you are, something you know, um, are getting better, right? We have biometrics now, so it's not really just those three things. It's something you are, or something, something you are is fingerprint, eye, whatever, eye scanning, YubiKey. And so I think, yeah, I don't have much to elaborate on there. I would absolutely ship it. I know it's inconvenient. I know it's annoying to pull out Authy and enter a 6-digit code if that's the only means of multi-factor you have. But um, yeah, I'm for it.
What do you think, A Ron?
I am a skip it because I think instead of doing a primary that's considered fairly useless, that's easily beatable, just go right to the second factor to begin with. It's like, why not just say, like, it's like passkey authentication? Like, yeah,
Oh,
great.
yes.
Why don't you just do that? Then I don't have to do two different things. Like, if I want to get into something, you know, immediately just go into your authentication app and authenticate yourself in. Okay, great, done.
Oh, as the second factor?
As the only factor, like
Oh,
just
right.
that's my login is by going to
It
a
is your
physical
identity.
to use
Mm-hmm.
my authenticator to get into something.
Yeah.
Instead of why do two things that are doing the same thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I
So
mean,
I'm a skip it. Do it better.
It's like duct taping your door closed, but then also doing a deadbolt.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I
Or
think
putting the hinges on the outside of the door, right?
yeah. You
With
just
a
like
deadbolt.
yeah,
jimmy
yeah,
them open with a
Yeah.
screwdriver.
pry
Yeah.
that off. Yeah, no problem.
No, I'm with you there. I think we can do it better in a way that you don't need two factor.
Yep.
Yeah, and I'm kind of I like two factor. I think the thing about two factor is like the first factor is usually more convenient. If you can make one that's convenient as just stored passwords, and then you don't have to do that. But I do like the idea of second two factor for things like a request is coming in from a new location or a new IP address. And you're like, we're gonna have to go through the multi-factor here to make sure you are who you are. Because I get those emails from like PlayStation Network and stuff like, oh, somebody tried to log into your account, but
Yeah.
two factor in, right? So that is helpful. But I would say the one thing I'd loved. I'm going to get on a soapbox here. One thing I would love is people to put like the appropriate level of like remember me type support. We have one package that I use that it's 24 hours. I'm like, I'm not launching rockets here, people. Like, come on. Like, really? I really have
Yeah.
to do this?
Yeah. I think
Ugh.
that's,
They're
yeah.
waiting for your background check to come back.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay. Good luck there. No, well, the other thing I'd say is that I'm more upset about than two factor probably would be the stupid cookie things. Every website I have to go to, I have to like
Oh, the
understand.
GDPR requirement?
Oh yeah, all that I have to
Oh,
agree
yeah.
to the cookies. Like I would love it to just. And a lot of websites are getting better about it. Like they have a button that says give me all of it or deny all or to
Yeah.
me strictly necessary. I love that, but not a lot of them have adopted that yet.
I did see um I don't remember where I saw it, but if it was like something from Google saying that they are working on not requiring cookies
Nice.
in Chrome browser. So I'm like, oh, that
That's
would be
interesting.
cool. Yeah.
Because if you really look at that, right? Well, one, it's driven out of compliance. It's fully GDPR made that happen. That's why those pop, and then everyone just sort of latched onto it. And I think the CCPA legislation also enforced it here in the United States. But um, yeah, but then like how many sites do you load? It loads all of its cookies and then asks you to accept or it's like, well, who cares? I already by visiting your site accepted your cookies, and very little change can happen when you say I accept or I don't accept, right? You know,
And I think they were very careful about their wording, like on the Apple thing where it pops, like when I'm on my Apple TV and it's like ask this app not to track you? I can't tell it, no, don't track me. I can just ask that they don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
I asked
Ask it.
nicely.
Oh, you can ask. Denied.
Right. Or you find out that like your Apple devices, right? Tracking, you can disable tracking for tracking you, but if your neighbors with phones can also talk to your Apple via Bluetooth, that doesn't count, right?
Oh my goodness.
Right. So that they can second party track you,
Oh my
but they
goodness.
just can't directly take your stuff, right? So there's all sorts of legal song and dance.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I think that's good for our ship it or skip it.
Yeah.
So now we move on to the highlight of the show, the thing we call the lightning round.
It's time for the lightning round. Rapid fire, don't slow down. Answer quick and make it count. In this game, there's no way out. It's time for the lightning round.
The way the lightning round works is we're going to rapid fire questions at you, one at a time, back and forth. And these are supposed to be short answered ones. It's just a way for us to get to know you a little bit better.
Cool.
Some people have survived this, so it's not all doom and gloom.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll do my best.
These are
We'll
hard-hitting.
each give you 5 questions.
All right. Wow.
And James, why don't you give us the first one?
Okay. Yeah, I'm coming in hot with this one. Sour Patch Kids or Swedish Fish?
Swedish Fish.
Giving presents or getting presents?
Giving presents.
Well done. When you fly on a plane, do you wear a neck pillow?
No. I kind of want one though.
I you know what? I used one for the first time, and now my bed pillow is a type of neck pillow.
Just wrap it around.
Well, it's not a wrap around. It's just kind of like a U shape,
That's
but
awesome.
it's great. Especially from sitting at a desk all day and keeping my head up. That's it works really well. Name a word that starts with the letter Q.
Quasi. Is that a word or is that a prefix?
Ooh. I don't know, but I like it. We'll accept it.
It's
Queen.
a name.
Because it sounds cool.
It's a name. I had a friend named Quasi. Yeah, I'll allow it.
Our mayor was Kwame.
That's true. Yeah. All right. Have you
close.
ever seen a kangaroo in person?
Yes. And I'll tell you my kangaroo story later.
Okay. I mean, now we got to hear it. You can't
Okay.
do that to our audience.
Okay. Well, then I will have to dive. Short story, walk through a kangaroo exhibit. They're all out in the open. There's a kangaroo covered in blood. I went up to the zookeeper and said, "Why is that kangaroo all covered in blood?" She said, "It was one of the males that got in a fight with another male just a few minutes ago, and they just went at it, and you missed a kangaroo fight."
Wow.
Yep.
That would have been something to see.
It would have been.
Yeah.
If there's a spider in your house, do you kill it or set it free?
Kill it.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you enjoy garlic?
4.
Okay. We would have also accepted 6.
I would have accepted 10 as well.
I like it on
just
things.
chew it like candy.
Put in my lip like dip.
What's something you could eat for a week straight?
Eggs.
That's
Good
an excellent
answer.
choice.
Yeah.
That's
a
an
great answer.
excellent
That's an
choice.
Oh yeah. Maybe that was it.
Well, he really
Oh.
cracked that one, didn't he?
Oh.
All
Put
right.
the yolks on you.
Oh.
Wow. Wow, we did not edit those in. Those were live.
Oh yeah, I can attest.
Yeah, so
I'm right here witnessing this.
That maybe somehow signed to say that. Never mind. Security. Would you rather be able to speak every language in the world or be able to talk to animals?
Every language in the world.
Okay.
You make him a lot of money doing that. What's your favorite clothing brand?
Oh man, you're asking the wrong guy. Target. I don't know if that's a brand.
Nice.
I will accept it.
I don't even know what number we're on. I'm gonna. Who was your first celebrity crush?
Oh, I'm blanking on her name. Jenny McCarthy.
Okay.
Oh,
Because, that era, 90s.
The '90s. Okay. We would have accepted Carmen Electra from the '90s as well.
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah.
are tomatoes a fruit or a vegetable?
I know technically they're a fruit, but I think of them as a vegetable.
Yeah. They got no business being over there. Was like,
All right, I think that wraps it up. I think we're good.
yeah. No,
Oh, man.
And you survived.
I did.
well
You didn't
done.
grill me too
Well
hard.
done.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Tyler, do you have any closing final thoughts or advice that you want to throw out to the public?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see security become more of a part of development, not just in the tools. And I'd say that as a person developing a tool, but or a platform, but it's part of the process and culture. And there's some bridges that can be built, I think, between security teams and development teams, both have something to learn from each other, but also in implementing security as part of the way we build. And really, I would encourage everybody to think bad, do good. Think bad, do good. Learn to think like an attacker. If I wanted to hurt the thing I was building or the people that used it, what would I do? And then at least consider that as you build. You don't have to be an expert. There's some really easy first steps that you could take as a developer that you don't need to be, you know, understand every single aspect of an attack chain to start protecting the things that you're building. And so that's what I would leave the audience with is just start thinking about it as if you were an attacker, and think bad, do good.
That's great. I like that. I'm gonna keep that as a phrase. Think bad, do good. Because I've also said the same thing about software development. As think about how you can break it, not how you can build it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is there anybody you'd like to thank? Some shout outs?
Oh, sure. I mean, I have lots of shout outs. I will, uh, I thank the OWASP team for, allowing me to kind of be a part of the OWASP standard project. Shout out to Built Technologies. They've allowed me to, build and experiment as they grew into a large company. And then, as we built this product on the side and are now taking this, scaling this, um, you know, they've certainly been a help, right? A help in that process. So absolutely. And for those who are interested in learning more at Untamed Theory, we are building a platform for what we're calling foundational application security. And what's there now is 5 foundational scan types and a way to prioritize those findings in your development environment. It integrates very, very quickly. We have people who don't have an account sign up and get scan findings within 15 minutes. But where we're taking this thing is to kind of the stuff we talked about. We're really leaning into the fixing and helping developers give them the information they need. And as we build this thing and grow this thing, we're in the middle of fundraising right now. We envision a future where the development team has what they need to become security experts.
Is there a website where we can learn more?
Yeah, of course. Untamed.cloud.
Excellent.
UNTAMED.cloud.
Nice. That's one thing I like about the offering is that it provides, because some of these things are offered by disparate tool sets, where
Yes.
this provides you kind of like that, almost like a single pane of glass view, and it's all together. I love that aspect of
Awesome.
what you
Yes.
guys are building.
Yeah, we wanted to give everything you need in one platform. That was the idea. And it will be expanding to other scan types. We're going to expanding to some cloud scan types, containers, and things like this in the future. Um, but certainly leaning on the development community to give feedback and input right into its usability. That's really, really important.
Great.
Nice.
Well, thank you, Tyler,
Yeah,
for
thank you
all
both.
of your wonderful information. That concludes this episode of the Forward Slash, where we lean into the future of IT. I'd like to thank our guest, Tyler Welton, for talking with us about supply chain attacks. I'd also like to thank my beautiful co-host, James, and all our production staff that make this podcast possible. Make sure you subscribe, rate, and share. If you'd like to reach us at the Forward Slash or have questions, you can email us at theforwardslash@calibrity.com. I'm Aaron Chesney. Thank you, and stay curious.